Hey guys, John Arsenna with the Warren Roofing side. I'm a salesman. I'm going to talk to you about scaffold safety. So, scaffold safety. 9% of all construction deaths are scaffold related. Okay, so 1 out of every 10 deaths in our industry occurs while dealing with scaffolding. 1/2 of all scaffold accidents occur because of faulty scaffolding. Think about that. 1/2 of all accidents while using scaffolding occur because of faulty scaffolding. That means that those accidents are preventable. So 2 of the basic types of scaffolding that we have, this one's a supported scaffold here. This one's an aerial scaffold. And these are the 2 types that I know the roofing side uses the most, as well as sheet metal. And we're going to talk a little bit about suspension scaffold as well that CBR uses a little bit. What are some of the types of scaffold hazards? Who knows one of the types of hazards? Fall protection. Fall protection, so falls, right, slips. Maybe there's no guardrails, maybe you're not using a personal fall arrest system. What else?
Gaps between the scaffolding.
Gaps between the scaffolding, right, issues with the planks. How about overhead?
Materials on the scaffold.
Materials on the scaffolding, overhead. You don't need to be working on the scaffold for the scaffold to be a hazard. You can be working below it or around it. Okay? Electrical, working on scaffold that's near power lines that maybe isn't protected correctly. How about if the scaffold collapses? We talked about 1/2 of all the accidents with scaffolding is from faulty scaffolding. So if it collapses, a hazard. Plank hazard we mentioned. How about bad weather? Ice, snow, wind, all can cause a hazard of scaffolding. And hit by, struck by. You're working on a job site with movable equipment, knocks into the scaffolding. What is this? Inspection tag. Every day the scaffold needs to be inspected by a competent person. Okay, what's a competent person? Someone that can identify hazards and correct them. So at the beginning of every day, a competent person needs to inspect the scaffold and hang this tag in a place where everyone can see it. It's usually at the bottom of the scaffold, the access point. What's our policy with hard hats on scaffolding? Wear it at all times, just like ladders, right? Always wear your hard hats. Here we go. How do we know scaffolding is safe? Solid foundation. This is a plank here put on the feet or the base of the scaffold. But our scaffolds normally put on grass, mud, areas that aren't solid, so these are called mud sills. Scaffold needs to be plumb and level, square, and braced. 20 foot vertically and 30 foot, every 30 foot horizontally needs to be braced. You need a safe work platform, you need a safe access, and guardrails. We talked about the guardrails and tow rails as well. This is a rolling tower. So on this, you need these locking casters. Okay, they need to be locked when you're working on the platform. What are the heights of the guardrails? 42 and 21, plus or minus 3 inches, right? Toe boards here. At what height do you need a toe board? Sorry? 10 foot. You don't need toe boards until you're at 10 foot. Guardrails you need at 6 foot. Cross braces, this gives strength to the scaffold system. Are you allowed to climb these? You cannot climb the cross braces unless they're designed to be climbed. In most cases, they're not. Do we use a lot of wood plank scaffolding? I don't know if we see that a lot in our jobs.
You do.
You do? Okay. 2 important numbers to know. 6 inches and 12 inches. This is the end frame. The end support here. This point cannot be less than 6 inches overhanging the end support, and it cannot be greater than 12 inches. Okay, so 18 inches past this end support. This is out of compliance. This is an aluminum frame. I know we see these a lot. This thing right here, it might be tough to see, but it's that little lever on the bottom of the scaffold. It needs to be locked into place. That's what secures the scaffold plank to the frame.
And these are the kind of details, guys, they don't seem important until, we have a high wind event and all of a sudden those planks start getting blown off and become flying objects. And I know we have started inspecting our scaffolding after it's erected instead of trusting the erectors. And we're getting better, they're getting better, but I don't know, and Mike, correct me, have we yet to have one installed properly the first time?
No.
They're not installed by the guys that are installing them properly, ever. We've yet to have one time where every little clip was installed or every little, I mean, the one that I know that's the most infuriating for me is when you get to the top and there's the gate that protects the access point and it opens out freely. That's awesome, right? So I can fall right off the scaffolding as opposed to being able to swing in and access the scaffolding. But I mean, the common sense stuff, you gotta look at it, check it. We're auditing them now at installation. So when we accept it, it's been inspected. And I know Jim Petrosky's been doing a lot of those. As Jim Rehard probably has put down a fair amount. They are getting better, but just keep that in mind. The other thing is, the other trades using them, just like our safety rails are on the perimeter, what was safe yesterday when it was inspected may not be safe. Somebody might have damaged, removed, somehow modified the scaffolding to where it's no longer safe like it was yesterday.
That's why it's important to inspect it every day, right? What job is this? Crew. Nice. We won a couple nice awards for this job. Here's some scaffold that we had set up while Mr. Parabo was installing this nice looking slate here. We have a guardrail on the back end. There's no guardrail here, and there's no guardrail here. Is this in compliance? Sorry? Yes, it is. You do not need guardrails when the building side of the scaffold is 14 inches or less away from the building. A little bit different on suspension scaffolds. That number shrinks down to 12 inches.
Question.
Yes?
How high can you build scaffold on rollers, on the wheels?
That's a good question. I don't know that answer. Is Dennis here that might know it?
Can you get that from your written answer?
We're going to find that out for you. Yeah.
I think part of that's a good question. I think part of the complexity is the size, right? So if it's a single bump and you go up,
I just said 25, 30, you got to type.
well, no, but I mean, if you have a single section of scaffolding on 3, it becomes unstable. Where if you have like a 40 by 40, so like one of the
If you
things.
have a 40 by 40, you're not going to put it on wheels.
Well, maybe, but like what we're talking about over gymnasiums where we're replacing tectum roof deck, is does it make sense to put a 40 by 40 platform under the tectum so that it's 2 feet, 3 feet below the ceiling, the joists, so we can roll it to where we're working each day, and that way, God forbid, because this is a building tech had a guy fall and subsequently die. For those of you who don't know tectum, it's like a lot like a ceiling tile, the grid. And so one tile might be bad. So you might be fine all day long, and then you win the lottery and found the one tile that's bad, and you get an express ticket down, right? And so you're otherwise protected with the barricades and whatnot, but you may not be harnessed. So we're talking about putting these underneath. And so in that scenario, having it maybe 30 feet high on a 40 by 40 base, we're going to be moving it not so much to work on, like we're really talking about, but as a form of additional fall protection, peace of mind, whatever, safety. It's not practical in a lot of cases for us to do nets, which is the other way to do it. So what may make sense for a working platform of limiting, and I think Todd's right, I think it's 3 months is the limit. In that other application, we may be able to actually extend that because the base is so much larger. Thank you. But Nicole, can you note that question and make sure we get an answer?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is an example of a suspension scaffold. So it's a scaffold that's hung by ropes. The ropes need to support 6 times the load. So that's 6 times the weight of the scaffold and anything on it. So employees, equipment, and tools. Just like the other forms of scaffolding, you need to inspect it every day. It needs to be inspected by a competent person. You need to evaluate the connections, the supporting surface. You need to inspect all the ropes. This is also important. You need to have a lifeline that's attached to an anchor point independently of the scaffold. So the anchor point cannot be attached to the scaffold itself. It needs to be attached to something else. So here's a stair tower we see in a lot of our jobs. And the access points here, and it's 2 foot above, 2 foot or more above the working surface. So when the access point is 2 foot above or below the surface you're trying to get to, you need another form of getting to that surface. So here a ramp is used because it's above. We might want to use stairs. That's another example. And if it's below, a lot of times we use a ladder.
I hate to keep interrupting, but one of the things our safety professionals have been noting, this is really true with roofing, but it's probably true with all the trades. When we're going up a ladder and then the parapet wall is so high and then you got to come back down, it's the same thing, right? You can't just jump off the parapet down to the roof. And so what historically we've seen is maybe an A-frame ladder leaned up. It's not the appropriate use for the ladders, right? So then we're finding short ladders. We invested in several different heights of steps. So and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have fiberglass 2 and 3 steps, and then 4, 5, and 6 is like a steel, kind of like you'd see at a shop to be able to go and get at different shelves like a Home Depot or something like that, where we can actually physically put a fixed set of stairs there. So we have invested in those, so as you're going from one roof area or accessing the roof and that transition is needed, we have those now that can be deployed. The alternative is like what we're seeing here is building a ramp, right? And so some of our crews are very carpentry sophisticated. This may be easier and faster for them. Others, it might be easier to just call and have one of those set out when we're setting the job up. But keep that in mind. That's one of those accidents waiting to happen just because you hop down and twist a knee or it's slippery and fall and hit your head, all of which we've experienced. So learn from our mistakes, I guess. Sorry to interrupt.
Nope, you're fine. Moving on to ladder safety. This isn't a warm photo, but it does look like one of the warm salesmen. So there are 300 ladder deaths per year. 300 deaths caused by ladders every year. And I was surprised to learn the height at which most people fall from ladders. It's 10 foot or less when they die. Surprisingly. And falls from ladders are also the leading causes of death on construction sites. Here's the ladder, needs to be inspected just like scaffolding does. The rung, you need to make sure it's free of grease, so it's not a slip hazard. You need to have these anti-slip shoes, and make sure it's on stable, solid ground. Make sure the rope isn't frayed. Make sure all the working parts are moving free and clear.
Just to interject, the one thing we've been noticing with Derek is our fiberglass ladders, the stickers on them have been weathering. Like, they're still physically on the ladder, but you can't read them anymore. We've been sending out those stickers. So as you're using the ladder, just be mindful if that sticker's not there to let the office know we have replacement stickers. I know this winter we were putting them on and they were falling back off. This was too cold. But that's something that just keep in mind that sticker is important to OSHA when it comes to that.
4-to-1 ratio. So for every 4 foot the ladder goes up, the base needs to go out 1 foot. Never support a ladder on power lines. That's kind of a no-brainer. And we tie off. You have to tie off the top of the ladder 3 foot above the parapet. Always maintain 3 points of contact. And never carry anything up and down the ladder. One person on a ladder at all times, never two. Any questions?
We're going to talk about personal protective equipment. All right, the reason we have personal protective equipment is because it's a lot of times last line of defense when it comes to protecting ourselves. So for example, we would typically use a personal fall arrest system, a harness, and a lanyard to protect us from a fall. But most oftentimes we have guardrails on roofs, that we install first step of the job, and that's a preventative administrative control to prevent us from having to use personal protective equipment for a fall. Okay? What are some forms of PPE?
Safety bags.
Safety glasses, gloves, man, you guys are killing me.
Gloves.
All right, let's slow down. You guys are killing me. I've got fruity candy and I've got chocolate candy. Like, who is first here? Back there. Fruity or chocolate? Chocolate. All right, pass that back there, pass that back there. Oh, that wasn't safe. All right, who had the next answer? Steel tofu. Chocolate or fruity? All right, what's next? Gloves. Fruity? All right, what else?
Non-cut gloves.
Non-cut gloves. We just heard that one. Earplugs. Who said earplugs? Chocolate or fruity? All right. By the way, guys, I found this photo. This is a female construction worker. They do exist. They are out there. You can see them on job sites. Just be prepared for that in the future. Oh, we have a few more answers for PPE. What else is out there? Harnesses. Who said harnesses?
Metatarsals.
Fruity?
High vis.
High vis. We got high vis over here. Snickers? Face shield. Who said that? Face shield? Why don't you come up here? You're standing in the back. You come help me out. No candy for the office. You guys are eating too much already. All right. So respirators. Did we hear respirators? Respirators. All right. All right. And by the way, we're doing fit tests today, and we encourage all guys here to do the fit test, the physical, in order to wear a respirator, because we don't want to have you on a job and then have to send you home because we need a respirator and you can't wear it. All right. Hard hats. I scoured the internet for the coolest looking guy that wears that new hard hat. That's a cool looking guy. He's got a bandana on. He's really pulling it off, I think. So it can be done. I know it's not fashionable right now, but it can be done. All right, so when do we need to wear hard hats? Always? Overhead hazard. Chocolate or fruity?
Up and down ladder.
Up and down ladders. Who said that? Gabe? Twix? Twix guy? Scaffold? Who said scaffold? Back there. Chocolate or fruity? Run out of chocolate. All right. All right, we're going to wear it. Also, when there's a crane in the area, guys, that's probably the most common when we're wearing hard hats. One of the most common. All right? All right. Safety glasses. This is a big one. We are continuously having to remind people to wear safety glasses. All right? I actually got called out by a general contractor superintendent the other day about our foreman not wearing safety glasses. And that is a very difficult conversation to have. So please, wear safety glasses when you're on a job site. And on top of that, when you're working inside the building, you need to make sure you have clear safety glasses on. I'm not actually quite sure if the blue ones are compliant to wear inside or not. I don't know if anybody knows that answer. Yes? All right, so you can wear the blue ones as well inside. So we'll get popped for that too by general contractors. This guy obviously had some type of eye injury. He still looks pretty cool, but I prefer not the patch. Okay. So let's wear our safety glasses. I know at home when I'm weed whacking, cutting or grinding something, and I get some piece of metal in my eye, I think to myself, I did that to myself on purpose because I should have been wearing safety glasses. So keep that in mind. Wear them at home too. Oh, I forgot to ask this question. When do we wear safety glasses?
100% of the time, I'll roof it in the shop.
Thank you. Chocolate or fruity? All right, gloves and boots. These are the parts of PPE that we need to be wearing pretty much all the time. Gloves, not necessarily, but when we're using hazardous chemicals, hot applications, just general light working or tear off, and we're handling sharp objects. So, what kind of gloves do we need to wear when we're dealing with hazardous chemicals?
Chemical gloves.
Chemical gloves. Chemical resistant gloves, rubber gloves, chocolate or fruity?
Chocolate.
All right. How about hot applications? Leather. Alex, did you already get them? Chocolate or fruity? All right. Light working? Light gloves? Cotton gloves, maybe? That's kind of a tough one. That's a trick question. How about sharp objects?
Type 4.
What level?
4.
Gabe's already won.
He did the
Who else? Amo? Did you say it? 4. All right. I guess we're all right, the work boots. We've got work boots for this year's safety gift, so there are no excuses why anyone should show up on a job site without work boots. All right, personal fall arrest systems. We're running out of candy. All right. So, what are the components of a fall arrest system?
Connectors.
All right, connectors. Who said connectors? I'm out of fruity. You're all spent. All right, rope grab. Rope grab. Chocolate it is. Anchor point. Lanyard. Lanyard. Anybody else?
Rescue ladder.
Rescue ladder. That's up there. Chocolate. All right. Harness? Who said harness? Back there. Here, back there. All right, so 30% of fatalities in construction are from falls. So I know we already talked about fall protection and the equipment that we're using. I know that's confusing. I do encourage you guys to talk to your supervisor, whether it's Mike, Jim, or Corey, about specific fall protection equipment, because we are using it specifically on some of my jobs at the steel mill. We're using them all the time, and I consider them fairly technical pieces of equipment. So I want to make sure you guys are using them appropriately, so that way, if we do have a fall, the equipment works the way it's supposed to. And we need to inspect these components daily. Can't reiterate that enough. All right, in additional PPE, these are kind of tough to see up here. Tyvek suits, when we're using, when we're tearing off asbestos, or we are tearing off pitch, or we're in a confined space where it's really dirty, you guys think we need Tyvek suits. We do have them in the shop, they're available. And I know Dave does send them out with the asbestos tear-offs pretty much automatically, but keep that in mind that we do have them available. Knee pads are another one that, you know, some guys use them, some guys don't. We did have a program a few years ago for some ergonomic knee pads. That program is still in place, and if you do want some better knee pads, I think they're a couple $100, and I think we're splitting the cost pretty much 50-50, where you'll be reimbursed about $100 for the knee pads. And if you want some more information about that, talk to Nicole or Mike after the meeting, and they can help out with that. And then earplugs. Earplugs isn't something we use on a regular basis, but cutting metal deck is a specific one. That gets very loud, I know. Grinding, masonry joints, things of that nature that you're going to be involved with a loud noise all day long. You're going to want to include earplugs as part of your PPE. And then, again, get your fit test done today if you haven't done so. I think there's going to be time around lunch to get that done. So in conclusion here, as a competent person, you need to identify the hazards that may be in place at work, and not only the ones that are in place, but predictable hazards. And make proactive decisions to protect yourself, protect your coworkers from injury using PPE as an option. I thought this little trick with the hammer was kind of neat because I never thought of that. I don't know if I'll ever use it, but it's kind of a good example of PPE as far as, hey, if you know there's a risk of smashing your finger, and you could do something to prevent yourself from smashing your own finger, you should maybe try to do that. Don't hurt yourself on purpose. That's all I can say. Do not hurt yourself on purpose. Any questions?